So I'll invite all of our speakers back up and we'll do about 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. So if you all have questions about how to get your projects funded or want to partner with one of these agencies, this is the perfect time to ask those questions and get the specifics. So I'll have Nick and John and Shaina. Does anyone have a question to kick us off? Here, Nick and John.
This one's for Nick. Nick, you had mentioned that they're streamlining a lot of the BRIC grants that used to be called the PDM. What about projects that were already selected and awarded? I've been working on one since March of 19 that's been awarded and still hasn't been funded.
Which one is that one?
A PDM. For Navajo County.
Navajo County, okay.
Yep, it's a thinning project, about $223,000. And we're losing properties because it's taking so long. People don't want to wait. So are those prior grants part of this new process, or are we going to wait that full 6 years? Do you know?
That's a tough one. So we are currently working on all of the old ones for sure. The work hasn't stopped on those, but PDM 19 is a little bit of a go, so more than likely it's going to hit the 6 years. But we're going to work with you guys to ensure that that gets done in accordance with our grant timeline. So I would just expect, especially now with our team, that we're going to get that project completely done.
Would you be the one we follow up with?
I could be, but I do have a counterpart that manages those. Her name's Katie Howell. I could put you in contact with her and we can get followed up on that one.
Please, thank you.
Yep. What was your name again?
Jim Morgan, Pine Top Fire.
Perfect, thank you.
I am Lorna Glansinger, and I am a Firewise assessor for a community in northern Arizona. And I'm also working on trying to get a community in Fountain Hills to become a nationally recognized Firewise community. So a lot of the information that you presented I'm not familiar with, but I'm wondering if any of you could speak to the possibility for applying for grants for private communities and HOAs.
Great question. First thing I'll say is you should definitely introduce yourself to Aaron if you haven't already. And when it comes to grants for private communities, that's what our department does. So if it's, for instance, a wildfire mitigation, hazardous fuel reduction type project, individuals do not directly qualify, but they can work through an eligible entity, so be it a county or a fire department, or if the HOA has 501c status, then you directly are eligible and can receive. If you don't have 501c status as the community, then you have to work through like a county or another eligible applicant. And again, they're like counties, fire departments, districts. Yeah. Yep.
This message for Scott. You're talking about the eligibility requirements. My department is under a township. We're part of the Navajo Nation, but like an umbrella subsidiary to them. So our ordinances are different than theirs, but we're still working, collaborate with them. And I've applied for many grants, and that always seems to be the issue. And I think you kind of just answered the question, like if we can't apply with the state, we can go through maybe the counties. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm assuming that was directed to me, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
Scott.
Yeah, actually, a lot of our grants, tribal entities are eligible to apply directly. I don't know your case particularly, but if you want to chat after this, I can get all your info down.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Just a quick comment, not to hammer on a little more of what Chief Morgan was getting at, but Forest Service, USDA, state, private, and tribal forestry money flows really well from the feds to the state to the ground. We don't see that with FEMA money. I mean, those brick grants sound fantastic, and my blood pressure spikes going to your website. And I think you guys need to do a serious look at how you can learn from some of the programs that are flowing that money. I mean, we have partners sitting for years on these grants. It takes us a long time as a municipality to budget for it. And if we're gonna say we might have to sit on this money for years, it's really hard for us to justify even going after those sort of funding sources. So not so much a question, just a comment. Take a look at your USDA partners and how they're able to flow some money. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Josh Wilson with Maricopa County Department of Emergency Management. So kind of for Shaina and then also DFFM, off the top of your head, because one of the issues that we're running into like at a county level when we're reviewing our grant funding, we don't get any base funding from like a general fund for matching. And the little bit of funding that we do get comes directly from another federal grant, which usually disqualifies us from using that to match, whether that comes from federal or state entities. For those BIA and DFFM specific grants, do you know if there's any route for federal fund matching or in kind for a lot of those?
Well, for BIA to qualify for our funding, you have to be in a federally recognized tribe or authorized tribal consortia.
And then for the state funding, we actually can do it a bunch of different ways. So we have state appropriated funds that we award out in grants. We also have federal funds that we receive and subaward as pass-through grants. Our federal funding that we pass through cannot be matched with federal funding. However, our state funding, it would be great to have it matched with federal funding. So let's talk.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Right. Hey, so this question's for you, Nick. So I think you mentioned that some of these programs that you're talking about need a hazard mitigation plan as a baseline. Can you talk about how prevalent are those across the state? Are most counties, do they have those, and are they at county scale or are they at city scale? What should we know about those?
The hazard mitigation plans are county scale. So typically it's spearheaded by the county EM, and it involves their entire jurisdiction. And what they do is they take a lot of scientific data and from each of the participating jurisdictions and put it all together on one document. And each of the participating jurisdictions provide their mitigation strategies for particular natural hazards. But this document's pretty important because it's going to be what holds you back from getting to use the grants that I spoke about. So if you don't have one, we're not really able to, we're going to be able to work with you on trying to get it updated or renewed. But if you don't have an active one, when it comes to the time to submit any applications for grants, you're going to miss out on a lot of that funding. So it's pretty important when it comes to actually trying to get that money. Did that answer your question?
It did. I wonder, so there's 15 counties in the state. How many of those 15 have an active hazard mitigation?
I could cheat and look at a tracker right now. I want to guess probably 70% of counties. I don't know the math on that out of the 15.
Hi, Emily Tracy. I work for the Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network. And I just wanted to make a plug for something called the Community Navigators Initiative that the Forest Service launched last year to help support communities in building capacity for going after the bill and IRA opportunities. But a question for the panelists is, we've seen for a lot of communities trying to go after both applying to and then managing federal dollars, it can be a real capacity building challenge. So I'm curious if you have any efforts going on right now to help do workshops or any sort of training or just sort of, capacity building in general for how to actually manage federal dollars. Thanks.
I could speak on this. So our team is recently, and I mean very recently, growing. And so we are trying to host more workshops to be able to help with application development or even just getting onto the website where the application is held. And teaching more about the processes in which we go throughout our entire grant timeline and mitigation. So, and in terms of, there was something else, part of your question I missed, so come back to me.
Yeah, with DFFM, we'll give you one-on-one, as you are applying, so.
For tribes, BIA or our branch funds Tribal Climate Resilience Liaison Network, and there's tribal liaisons that are stationed at the Climate Adaptation Science Centers, and they're able to provide tribes with technical assistance for applying for our funding or, other climate-related funding. So, yeah.
We also know that doing anything with federal dollars is an administrative burden, absolutely. So there are management costs, typically 5% of whatever the project is, separate pot of money essentially, would be able to help provide funding to be able to get throughout the entire project's timeline.
It's chatty today.
Shaina, my question's for you, and really excited to hear about the monies being made available to the tribal nations. In Arizona, some of the most productive and expansive forest resources are on the tribal nations, White Mountain and San Carlos especially. You mentioned that the this White Mountain received some funding from those programs. Can you talk a little bit more about, one of the things we're trying to do at DFFM is partner with the tribal nations to help them with technical assistance or other resources. Can you talk about how that program might be used for the state or counties or fire departments to help partner with the nations through your programs?
Yeah, that's all dependent on the tribes themselves. These are all tribally led programs. If it depends on whether they would like to partner with states or counties, surrounding their area, they can. It's just the tribes themselves have to apply for the funding and write out the project. So, it's possible. But yeah, that's all climate-related work, and of course, we have the Division of Wildland Fire that does other projects with the tribes and then surrounding areas.
Great. Would it pay for NEPA and sort of that environmental review stuff?
Yeah, it'll pay for that. Yeah, as long as they put it in the costs and their budget, we can fund NEPA. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
This question's for Nick. Are there any restrictions on land ownership that your grants can be spent on?
There is. So if, for example, you're doing a thinning project, it cannot be on federal land with the federal dollars because that would be duplication of efforts. And we wouldn't be able to, that would not be an eligible activity just because of where the project's land is being conducted on.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Shirley Picosa. I'm the forester for the Pueblo of Acoma, and we have a TFPA agreement with the Cibola Forest Service, and I was wondering if any of these funding would be eligible towards that type of project. I know there are some homes near our thinning sites, so I didn't know if there's like a buffer I guess that we would have to be in range to be considered for any of these fundings.
Was it Shirley? So the CWDG grant opportunity that is open right now from the U.S. Forest Service, tribal entities are encouraged to apply. And through that, if you're selected, we work directly with you from the government to the tribe. So I would highly encourage you guys, or any tribal entity, to take advantage of that program. There's a lot of money out there, and I think through the community navigation process is one of those pieces that we're trying to outreach to some of those communities. So, and feel free to talk with me offline, and I'll show you the website, kind of walk you through what I know.
And I'll throw in on top of that, this morning there was a training seminar for the Round 3 CWDG that was specifically applicable to the tribal communities. So that will be available on that website in their extra information down there at the bottom, so you can pull up that recording.
If I could just add on one more thing. I'm Sean Friend. I'm actually a community navigator for the region for the Forest Service. And there's also the Tribal Landscape Scale Restoration grants that are open right now. That's up to $300,000 for thinning projects on tribal land. And that closes on December, I think, 18th. So it's coming up quickly, but that would be a great option for your project, Shirley.
Yeah, the annual awards funding can be used for any wildfire-prone areas. You just have to really address the threats to the community because we did prioritize threatened communities. So putting that in your proposal would help. And yeah, I was going to add something, but I forgot. So.
Okay, thank you all for your great questions, and with one more applause for our panelists. Thank you.